Fiancé secretly reconnected with her ex whilst we were on a break and expected to come back to open arms, but I was secretly planning my exit the whole time. I used to joke that our apartment had two thermostats, one on the wall for the radiators and one inside Emily's eyes. When her pupils sparked a certain way, it didn't matter if February winds rattled the sash windows. The room went warm. That was a temperature I knew best, the heat of a fiancé who adored me and who swore we were the luckiest people alive. We signed the lease on the place in Shoreview the same morning we picked out her ring. The agent handed over keys still jangling from a printer tag, and Emily spun a silly circle in the empty living room, saying, "We'll remember this as a space where everything starts." I believed her. I believed every glossy bright promise she murmured while we lay on the floor that first night, eating takeaway from the carton because a moving van wouldn't arrive until dawn. For a year the promises held. We quarreled like normal couples, about the rattle of my motorbike helmet left in the hole, about her leaving Spotify loud enough to shake the upstairs plaster, but the arguments were sparks that never caught. We had a wedding date, August 16th. Her grandmother's locket, something old. My late mother's pearl hairpin for her bouquet, something borrowed. We even had a spreadsheet of color swatches because Emily wanted, to quote her, Duster Rose accents, not pink. Life was orderly, plotted, perfect. Or so I thought. The first genuine fracture came disguised as a throwaway comment. We were brushing our teeth one Monday, foamy mouths, mint breath, and Emily said she'd peeked at rental listings in the newer district by the marina. They're converting the grain warehouses into lofts, she said. Huge windows, built-in wine fridges. I spat and shrugged. Nice, but out of our bracket. Her smile froze a half-second too long. I wiped toothpaste off my chin without noticing the chill that slipped into plumbing. From there, the complaints multiplied like mildew in the corners. The stove took ages to heat. The bathroom tiles looked budget. The neighbor's twin terriers barked at odd hours. I patched what I could, resealed grout, added padded rugs, but each fix earned only a nod, never the warm, approving grin I craved. Then came the night of the thunderstorm. Rain hammered the tin roof vent so fiercely the bedroom felt like the inside of a drum. The power flickered. Emily sat up in bed scrolling listings on her phone, brightness glaring across her cheekbones. She turned the screen to me. 3-bed duplex, view of the river. It's only $450 more a month. I laughed, soft, stupid, reflexive. We're still saving for the wedding. $450 is a florist bill and the cake deposit combined. She closed the tab, but her jaw set hard. We didn't say goodnight. Arguments after that were less about rent and more about air. Space. She said the apartment felt suffocating, but the way she said it made me suspect she meant I felt suffocating. Still, I nodded through every grievance, believing relationship maturity meant never slamming a door. I tried move-in nights, surprise roses, a reservation at the tapper's place where we'd toasted the engagement. Each gesture landed with muffled thud. On a Saturday in late April, rain again. How fitting. Emily came home clutching a reusable grocery bag, but no groceries inside. Instead, folded sheets of paper, the contract on a month-to-month storage unit, and a train ticket to her parents' town, 2 hours north. She didn't wait for me to ask. I need space, Jamie. Just a think. Those words clanged in my skull. All I was thinking about was breaking up. But she said nothing about breaking us. She framed it as a pause. A breather. I stood in the hallway nursing a coil of dread and asked a stupid, hopeful question. For how long? Let's say a month. Let me clear my head, come back, and we'll see things fresh. Part of me wanted to contest, to throw down all the wedding brochures and plead that couples facing cold feet simply turn up the metaphorical radiators. Another part, call it cowardice or call it love, fear that pressing too hard would fracture us irrevocably. So I agreed. You can't hug someone who's flinching. You open your arms and hope they find their way back. For the first few days, her absence felt like a power outage, routine tasks done by torchlight. I set 2 mugs on the counter each morning, before remembering only one was needed. I answered texts in our group chat with a maid of honor and my best man, lying through smiling emojis. M's offline for a bit. No worries. All good here. But as the 4th week ticked past and no return ticket appeared, gloom thickened. My calls went unanswered, then unreturned. Her phone rang twice before jumping to voicemail. What little daylight was left in me shrunk to a pinhole. I left one last message the day the initial month expired. It's Jamie. Just checking in. Love you. Please call. The question mark at the end of my voice sounded pitiful. A fortnight later, 6 weeks post-departure, I phoned her parents. Her mother answered, brittle politeness stiffening every syllable. I asked, as gently as I could, whether Emily was all right, whether she needed anything. The line crackled. Then the older woman sighed like someone lifting a lid off bad soup. She's occupied, James. Occupied. Not ill, not busy. Occupied. I swallowed. I'd really appreciate speaking with her, even for a minute. That's when Emily's father took the receiver. His tone bristled with a confession he didn't want to give, yet maybe felt I deserved. Son, she's been seeing Nathan again. You remember Nathan? My tongue went numb. Nathan, the high school sweetheart I'd heard about once, filed away under ancient history. It happened fast. The older man continued. They bumped into each other in town. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became... He trailed off. We tried talking sense, but you know how stubborn she can be. I said thank you. Why do we thank people for thunderclaps? And hung up. The apartment, already too quiet, grew cavernous. I shoved my phone deep in the sofa cushions and stared at the ceiling where faint water stains had formed from that last big storm. A symbolic Rorschach above my head. Maybe a dragon. Maybe a snuffed candle. In that silence, cold clarity bloomed. They had pushed pause on me, but I still held the remote. I didn't scream or curse or fling plates at walls. I stood, took the engagement ring from the dish by the sink, and set it in my palm till the chill of the metal soaked my skin. So small, a ring, yet it could anchor or drown you, depending on who let go first. I slipped it into its velvet box, clasped the lid shut, and felt something inside me close to, not bitterness, not yet, something more surgical, the part of a surgeon that must still his breath before the first cut. That night I opened a fresh spreadsheet, labeling each section finance, logistics, contingencies, and a fourth tab I labeled future, TBD in a fit of gallows humor. While she took space to flirt with nostalgia, I would reclaim the square footage of my life. I began with the hard numbers, joint savings, mostly my salary, I discovered, venue deposits, and the brand new sofa purchase on my credit line. Reverse engineering untanglement felt perversely energizing. For months we'd built a life like eager masons stacking bricks. Now I worked the chisel to loosen each stone. Step 1. Open a separate current account. I moved my next paycheck there, leaving the joint one afloat long enough to avoid suspicion. She'd never set up alerts, assuming I handled the boring bank admin. Step 2. Call the venue. They had a grace period until May 31st for final confirmation. I marked it red on the calendar, a doomsday that, if reached, would consume most of our deposit. I decided I'd cancel on May 28th. Close enough that she'd be unable to salvage the date, but early enough for me to receive a partial refund wired to my new solo account. Step 3. The apartment. We'd signed a break clause lease. Either tenant could exit with 60 days' notice. I scanned the agreement, felt my pulse slow like a hunter's. If I filed notice on June 1st, we'd be out by July 31st. She could keep the walls she deemed inadequate until the landlord reclaimed them. Revenge doesn't require fire or poison. The most devastating element can be absence, an orderly removal, a vanishing act so complete it leaves only outlines like chalk on pavement. That became my thesis. I packed methodically while she was away. My guitar, the photo albums, my mother's china, each wrapped and smuggled to a friend's attic across the river. I left surface items in place, toothbrush in the cup, jacket on the peg, as though I still lived fully inside the shell. The apartment became a stage set, convincing to a casual glance, hollow behind the flats. 6 weeks rolled into 8. Emily's digital silence continued apart from one curt email. Hope you're well. I'll be back June 2nd to talk. M. No apology, no explanation, just logistics. I replied, okay, let me know your arrival time. Nothing more. I spent the intervening days refining my accounting. The florist canceled without charge when I spun a story about family illness. The cake designer kept 30%, but I'd already clawed double that back by selling a vintage watch Emily once called too chunky for wedding photos. My exit spreadsheet glowed green with achieved targets. On the night of May 27th, I visited the venue grounds, a converted orangery at dusk, fairy light strung through budding vines. Empty, beautiful, expensive. I walked the gravel path we'd planned for the ceremony, palms brushing ghost rows of folding chairs. Near the open arch where we would have said vows, I whispered mine anyway, letting the words float upward until they dissolved. Then I toned, got in my car, and called the events manager. Regrettably, we must cancel. My voice sounded calm, paternal almost. She offered condolences, promised a partial refund within 10 working days. I thanked her, hung up, and drove back through streets soft with lilac shadow. That was the night bitterness finally arrived, a quiet visitor, wet-footed, sitting beside grief on the couch. They didn't fight. They shared a blanket and regarded me with matching tired eyes. By dawn, however, strategy outweighed emotion again. The game board was nearly set. Emily texted the morning of June 2nd. On the 9:10 train, ETA 11:12. Can we talk at the flat? I responded yes, period. No emoji. Then I brewed coffee in the French press she loved and arranged 2 mugs on the windowsill already stripped of succulents. Sun poured through and pooled in the empty spaces. At 11:14 a.m., taxi door slammed outside. I watched from the kitchen archway as she wrestled a suitcase up the stairwell. She entered with a tentative smile of someone stepping back into a favorite cafe after years away, half expecting the barista to still know the order. Hi, Jamie. I nodded, offered coffee. She blinked at the tidiness, spaces wider than memory. But my mug shivered gently in her hand. The tremor betrayed nerves. Good. Nerves mean uncertain footing. I let her settle on the sofa, still immaculate, cushions plumped. She opened and closed her mouth twice before words came. Look, I owe you an explanation. I sat in the armchair. Go ahead. Stories poured. Confusion, rediscovered feeling for Nathan, old memories clouding judgment. She never said love regarding Nathan. Only we connected, as if plugging in a charger. She couched betrayal in the language of mindfulness. I had to honor what I was feeling. I listened, silent, letting the rope pay out until she reached the end and dangled above the canyon she dug. Finally I spoke. Are you planning to marry me? Her eyes widened, maybe at the directness. Yes, if you will have me. She looked around, noticing perhaps for the first time the missing bookshelf, the absent guitar stand. We can pick up where we left off, fix what's broken. I leaned forward, elbows on knees. All right. I reached into my pocket and placed a velvet ring box on the coffee table. She sighed, a soft, relieved note, and reached for it. Before her fingers touched the lid, I withdrew my hand, leaving the box closed. I'm glad you're sure, I said, because I am too. I stood. I'm sure I'm done. Confusion flickered, then dread. Done. Lease ends July 31st, I said, handing her an envelope with a notice copy. Venue cancelled. Deposit returning to me. They were under my name. I slid a second envelope. Printout of the florist's email, the refunded sums highlighted. Joint account's yours. I took my salary. The rest you can keep for fresh starts. Shock blanched her face. Words formed then fell apart. She opened the ring box. Empty. I tapped my chest pocket. The ring glinted between fingers. I'll sell it, I said, or maybe keep it as a paperweight. Haven't decided. Jamie, she whispered, this is insane. We can fix. 8 weeks ago you needed space. I gave it. You filled it with someone else. I shrugged. I filled mine too. Her lip trembled. Where will you go? Already gone. I gestured at the flat. Only the stage set remains. Taze welled. She wasn't prepared for an audience that had exited before the second act. She looked small, suitcase at her feet, like a commuter who boarded the wrong train. I walked to the door, opened it. Take all the time you need to pack the rest. Landlord's expecting the keys August 1st. I stepped into the corridor while she remained frozen. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gentle as a library book, felt the latch click, a sound neat and final. Downstairs, sunlight greeted me. I breathed, deep and steady, tasting early summer cut grass carried on traffic hum. Life's thermostat adjusted. Warm enough. I didn't walk to my car so much as drift, a paper boat caught in a lazy current. For 2 months I'd rehearsed that departure. When the moment came, it felt strangely matter-of-fact, like posting a letter with no return address. I drove across town to Harris's semi-detached, the attic where half my life now lived in neatly labeled crates. Harris greeted me in socks and an Arsenal jersey, confusion creased on his brow. I hadn't warned him the plan was complete. Mate, you're pale as milk, he said, guiding me to the kitchen. Did the bomb go off? It went off quietly, I answered, accepting the pint glass of water he pressed into my palm. My reflection bobbed in its ripple, eyes rimmed red, cheeks unshaven. The muggy June air clung to my skin, but inside I felt a draft, the sudden chill of finished business. We sprawled at his garden table under a sagging string of bulbs left from a barbecue, and I told him the story, the whole sordid genesis, the spreadsheet, the ring box feint, the door closing with librarian politeness. Harris whistled low. Savage, he said, though admiration laced the word. You sure you're all right? The honest answer, no, not yet. But I also wasn't crumbling. I imagine the mind as a snow globe shaken hard. Sooner or later the flakes settle. Meanwhile you watch the swirl and breathe. I'm level, I said. Tired in places I didn't know had muscles, but level. He nodded, fetched 2 lagers, and we drank without clinking. Over the fence children's voices drifted, a trampoline squeak, a squeal of triumph. Ordinary life continuing. I found the sound merciful. That evening I opened my exit spreadsheet one last time, added a green cell reading complete on every tab, then archived the file. You can't live forever in crisis mode. Eventually you must shut the laptop. I slept on Harris's fold-out sofa, waking near dawn to a pale stripe of sky through the skylight. No night maze, just not emptiness where wedding plans once thrummed. Loss, yes, but threaded with relief, like removing 2 tight shoes after a marathon. 3 days later, a withheld number lit my mobile. Against better judgment, I answered. Jamie. Emily's voice, hoarse as though scraped across gravel. I pictured her in the apartment's alcove, suitcases half-packed, the enormity of what she'd lost finally eclipsing the fantasy she'd chased. I'm here, I said, tone flat. Silence bumped at the line's edges. Then, you blindsided me. Did I? I leaned against Harris's porch rail. You took 2 months' silence. I replied in kind. That flat was ours. A waver, part anger, part bewilderment. You made it not ours without letting me try. You tried already, I said. You tried Nathan. You tried doubt. I only mirrored the investment. A shaky exhale. I ended things with him. I waited. The breeze nudged chimes. They clinked like cautious applause. She continued. It was nostalgia. That's all. I saw who he was now and realized we'd grown apart. My parents were furious. I'm furious at myself. Her words tumbled faster, desperate to outrun consequence. We can start again. New engagement. Smaller ceremony. Counseling. I shut my eyes, letting the sentence fray. Regret is a talented mimic. It borrows any accent to get indoors. But there's a difference between apology and panic. Emily, I said, gentle but firm, I don't hate you. I'm not even sure I'm angry anymore. But the trust, think of it like a pane of sugar glass used in theater. Looks solid, shatters easy. You only get the one take. She sniffed. Can we meet and talk in person? Please. I pictured her eyes, the thermostat that once warmed rooms. Could I survive another blast of that heat? Maybe, but survival isn't the same as living. I glanced at the cardboard boxes stacked behind Harris's sofa, my future sealed with brown tape, waiting. I think the talking's done, I said. A long pause followed, so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Then a small, resigned, okay. The line went dead. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. Somewhere inside a lever clicked. The machinery of my grief downshifted, gears no longer grinding. I wasn't joyful, but I was undeniably free. That afternoon I sold the engagement ring to a jeweler near the station. The owner appraised it beneath a loupe, nodded, named a figure. I accepted without haggling. As I left, he tucked the cash into a discreet envelope. Its weight felt both absurd and fitting, the same ounces that had once circled Emily's finger. On impulse, I crossed to the travel agency kiosk opposite and booked a one-way flight to Lisbon departing August 16th. What would have been our wedding day? Heat, pastel rooftops, custard tarts, fado drifting through alleyways, a counterscript to the ghost ceremony. That night Harris raised an eyebrow at my purchase. Portugal. Sun Insurance, I said. Guaranteed shortage of bridal marches. He laughed, clapped my shoulder. Send a postcard. What did you think of this story? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. And thanks for listening.